I don't normally go live, but I figured today with two competing events, trying to cover both of them, this would be the best way to do it. I can't see your comments the way I have the camera set up, so don't think I'm ignoring you. Um, on the left, of course, we have the people arriving in DC for the installation of Joe Biden. On the right, we have Right Side Broadcasting Network awaiting the arrival of current President Trump in Florida, Palm Beach. They've been there for at least an hour, probably longer. His flight was set to arrive, I believe, at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And then, of course, there's the transfer from the plane to the vehicle. It's now 10:40 Eastern Time. So by the time they actually see him go by, they're right by the bridge to the intercoastal. So they're going to be able to see the president drive by, and they've just been kind of talking about the last 4 years and what they think the next 4 years holds. They have interviewed some people, and as more people come into the room now, we have 286 people watching. I'm going to reiterate, I can't see your comments the way I have the camera set up. Um, thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Um, it's just something we're going to have to deal with. One of the more interesting things about today that's different, and they've covered this at length on Right Side Broadcasting, is that without Mr. Trump in DC, the changeover gets a little tricky. I'm sure they probably have all of that, worked out. There's two nuclear footballs. One's going to be deactivated as soon as the inauguration takes place. Every time we put a new president in, they have the special air mission so that whoever the president was, the outgoing, can fly home. That's not the case. He actually left DC as the president of the United States because, of course, the inauguration hasn't happened yet. And that's how he'll arrive here in Florida. They have been interviewing people on the side of the road, and earlier they had a very good interview with a guy who talked about, this is the time to now start working on our local areas, to take the values and bring them down to the local level and stop caring so much about federal elections. It was an amazing thing to hear. It really was. But it's truthful about here in Florida. This is Palm Beach County, by the way, where they're at. It's a blue county. But here's somebody in Palm Beach saying, you know what? Our fix is right here in Palm Beach County. That's what that person is saying. And I apologize. I don't know the name of the two people speaking on the right, but the young lady had mentioned that, this is what we need to do as we go farther north in Florida. It becomes very red, that it's a red state, but we also have areas that vote blue. But nevertheless, I don't think anybody would come here and think that Florida is governed or operated in a way that is anything like a liberal northern state. So, we have democratic elections here in Florida, and they have meaning. And they mean things because they are created on the ground. And like the guy said, local sheriffs, local city councils, local boards. Those that have won, so to speak, those on the left, they're going to react a lot like people did back in 2016-17 when Trump won. And let me see if I can be very clear about that. Back, if you can remember back this far, back to 2015, 2016, people on the right would have voted for anyone other than Hillary. I mean, they really, really wanted Donald Trump, but if it came down to it, there was a huge group of people that would have voted against Hillary, that had their mind made up, said, no matter who, we want Trump for sure. We want that to be our choice. But if for some reason the Republicans choose someone else, we're not going to stay home. We're going to vote against Hillary. Now, that same group of people that were supporting Hillary took a page out of the playbook of the conservatives this time. And they made up their mind a long time ago. Said, we're going to vote for anyone other than Trump. We're going to vote for anyone other than Trump. That's what they decided a long time ago. Nothing else mattered. So Joe Biden, and this is why I've referred to him as the lemon sorbet president, is just the pal. You see, Hillary Clinton wasn't president at that time. She was just a candidate. And, Obama was going out of office anyway. So he was already going to be gone. So this is what's kind of going to be their state of mind for a while. Okay? The anyone other than people are going to disengage. See, that was kind of a mistake. I hate to say it. I know people don't like to hear about mistakes, but that was kind of the mistake. After Trump won, people kind of backed off. People kind of disengaged. People thought, well, okay, we got this big guy installed in D.C. That's going to fix all of our local problems. Well, that's going to happen now with the left. Huge swaths of anyone other than Trump voters. And they're going to go, now that they think they have Biden in office, they're going to just fade into the background. Actually, it looks like they are on the right. They have the shot of Air Force One. Wow. That's an incredible shot there on the right. You guys can see it. Yep, that's Air Force One. So 10:46, yeah, looks like it's right on time. So they're going to have, of course, coordinate this. It's all Eastern time, so I'm sure this isn't a real big deal. But that's going to be key, because when they disengage, I mean, let them have their parties, let them have their, moment in the sun, so to speak, but they're going to disengage. And if we quietly begin working grassroots on the ground, a difference can be made that they won't see coming. A difference can be made that they won't see coming. And, you won't be able to, use just the one name, and it's not going to get you, Trump, 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 Trump. He can't be everyone's sheriff. He can't be everyone's, city council leader. He can't be everyone's mayor, of course. But the values, and the guy they were interviewing at the time was talking about values. We need to find people with these values and put them in positions of power. In local races, in smaller races where the left isn't paying attention, and they're not going to be paying attention. Because, like I said, they think they've won everything because they got the guy in D.C. Florida is proof. Florida is proof you can have good governance no matter who is in D.C. And I'm sure a lot of you can remember back to 2015 and 2016. It was almost like it was yesterday, and here we are 4 years later. That's how fast 4 years is going to go by. The last year dragged on for virtually forever because of the, of course, pandemic. But now that that's become, pretty much part of culture at this point, that's a really great shot they got on the left there. I don't know if that's from earlier, the takeoff, or if they have their own pool camera in Florida. I don't, that looks like a palm tree there on the left, so they might have their own pool camera. So anyway, just trying to narrate a little bit, split screen. But that's going to be the key going forward. It really is going to be the key going forward. Florida is going to kind of lead the way in this. Because that's going to be the new home of conservatism. It's going to be the new home of those who supported President Trump. I mean, White House South is literally, I don't think, going anywhere. I'd say it. Because there's going to be a lot of people that are still going to look to President Trump for his opinion, still going to look to that group of people for direction. And we still have it within our power to do. I'll be very honest with you, the task in the new North Korean states of Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin is monumental. I've recommended either people get really super involved there or leave because it's really that bad with Governor Evers in Wisconsin pretty much just letting Chicago run his state. And I don't think I probably need to speak much more about Gretchen Whitmer or the city of Detroit and what they've allowed to go on there. Governor Wolf in Pennsylvania, that used to be a state full of conservative, good, decent, hardworking Christian people, but apparently um, Philly has taken the lead. Pittsburgh has taken the lead. And as you can see on the left, they are, of course, filing in all the big government types. So I've got Big Mike and his wife, Barry, have arrived. I think earlier we saw W. And before that, we saw Hill Dog and Billy. So they're going to go through all the pomp and circumstance, which is fine. This happened in Rome. This is why they fell to the Huns. But there were still parts, and those of you think, oh no, are you saying the country's going to collapse? Parts of the country might. Florida's not. Texas is not. Absolutely, California is on the brink. They might as well. It's kind of been a self-fulfilling prophecy for California because they call themselves, if you look at their flag, it says Republic of California. Well, what's a republic? What do we know a republic is? It's a conglomeration of states. I think they're going to return to that. I really do. I think they're going to have the West, the coasties, the liberals from Frisco all the way down to San Diego. And then they're going to have the Inland Empire, Temecula, San Bernardino, Lake Tahoe, Sacramento. Sacramento is where Rush Limbaugh got his start. I'm sure a lot of people don't know that. Sacramento, a lot of people associate Rush Limbaugh with down here in Florida. He moved there, but he got his start in conservative talk radio in Sacramento in Northern California. That's where he started. So and I've mentioned this too. They're a fractured group. I mentioned this last night. We were streaming on Twitch. The left is a fractured group right now. A very, very fractured group. And they're going to have a lot of people that are going to start asking for things that are going to be contradictory. And Biden is known for a lot of things, gaffes being one of them, but he's also known for being pretty stubborn. And after 47 years, he's not going to be bullied by the left. He's not going to be pushed around by a part of a caucus that didn't even exist. Most of those people in that caucus weren't even born when he had already been in Congress for 10 or 15 years. I mean, he's old school. So it's going to be one of those things where I've told people, pop some popcorn, kick your feet up. First order of business, get yourself to a state that's governed properly. Get yourself to a state or someplace, some locality that's governed properly. That should be order of business number one. We've proven beyond the shadow of any reasonable doubt, especially with the pandemic in the last year, that even though, yes, we are a country, we are primarily a continent, North America, Canada, United States, Mexico. Even Canada has divisions. They've got, I believe, 6, 7 different divisions up there. Territories, I believe they're called. There's a Saskatchewan and Nova Scotia and Quebec and all that. And Mexico has, I forgot how many. And so do we. And they're governed differently. Each state. What would be the point of governors if everything has to come from D.C.? What would be the point of governors at all? Why wouldn't we just appoint trustees? What would be the point of 50 senates or 50 houses of representatives or 50 Supreme Courts? If that were truly the case, that could be done regionally. Why wouldn't you just point, regional overlords or imperators? Praetors, I believe, actually would be the proper term that the Romans would have used. You wouldn't need 50 of them. Not sure who this is. Oh, hard to say who all these people are. Filing in for their front row seats. I don't know what that woman is wearing, but somebody needs to talk to her about it. It's horrible. And of course, this isn't a fashion show, but I'm sure it's freezing balls up there. That's for sure. And you can actually look over here on the right and see people in Florida that have their sweatshirts wrapped around their waist. That's kind of a part and parcel of Florida this time of year. You get up in the morning like 38, 39, 40 degrees, even down in West Palm, and it'll probably get up to be 75, 77, but it's chilly. It's chilly in the morning. 10, I think I saw somebody flash by it's weird. The comments flash by and disappear. I can't remember. It says, I think 10 provinces in Canada, somebody said. So anyway, so this is what's going on. We are now at 5 minutes till 11. Looks like they might have made up some time in the air flying from DC, because it usually doesn't take all that long to disembark at the airport and then come over the bridge and head to Mar-a-Lago. I'm in a place called Palm Coast. This is where they are, is Palm Beach. There's palm everything down here in Florida. Probably a good solid 4 hours north, maybe a little bit more. His son, Donald Trump Jr., is going to be, allegedly, him and Kimberly Guilfoyle are going to be settling in a town called Jupiter, which is just north of that. Indian Creek is very, very close to Mar-a-Lago. It's a hop, skip, and a jump. It's a walk. But super exclusive properties over on the intercoastal side. So you kind of have to wonder too. A lot of people say, why do you live in Florida? Because aren't you afraid of tsunamis? Aren't you afraid of hurricanes? Aren't you afraid of all this kind of stuff? I'm like, well, the president has his huge spread. I mean, literally way out on the intercoastal. I'm inland from the beach, probably 15, 20 minutes. So I'm a lot farther away from the ocean. It'd have to be one hell of a tsunami to make it to where we are. But he's literally right there. I mean, he's literally right on. He's farther east than the intercoastal. So Mar-a-Lago would be a lot closer to being in the line of fire. Plus, where he is too, they have a lot more landfalls. I'm sure Mar-a-Lago is well reinforced and well protected from such things. I've heard they've been doing renovations down there recently, so maybe that's part of it. Who knows? But people have also said everyone can't live in Florida. Well, people said that when we had 18 million people, and now we have 22 million people. And we're going to have 23 million people. I could see Florida, having 30 million people, especially in the next 4 to 5 years. I could honestly see that. Because people are done with bad government. People are done with bad government. And it's not that, people are going to start having a ton of babies. People are going to relocate. And for every person we get, that's one person that another place doesn't have. And those people are primarily coming from the north. So this is the reality. It's not just Disney World. It's not just the beach down here. It's not just palm trees and sunshine and party time and vacation all the time. There's a lot of work that goes into Florida. We have farms, lots of farms. People talk about that too. It's like, Florida can't support itself. It doesn't have any food. Are you kidding? We have more than oranges. We have huge horse farms. In fact, prior to Disney World, the center part of Florida was solid cattle farms. In fact, it's where the term cracker originated. A lot of people don't know that too. Um, it's a pejorative term used, for a white person, but it was actually coined by slaves, native peoples that were working with the men up on horseback who had whips, and they would crack the whips. That's where they got the term cracker. And they were driving cattle. Florida used to have a huge cattle industry here. It was the biggest in the Americas until Texas, and the West got settled. And there's still tons and tons of horse farms. We grow everything here. We grow everything here. You name it, sweet, and we grow year round, virtually year round. People can have tomato plants out, especially if you get down south of the frost line. You can be harvesting 24/7, 365. Plus, we have huge fishing industry, so a never-ending supply of food from the sea. Citrus, of course, well known. So we're doing just fine. And plus, we've made all sorts of alliances with people in the Caribbean. And of course, I've talked extensively on my channel about Brazil, about the values of Brazil and the values of Florida starting to come into line, coming in together. And, it's just, people talk about a new world order. I'm not saying that, America should be dissolved. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that at all. But I think perhaps a realignment of values would make everyone happy. Because there's certain people on the left you're never going to convince of conservative values. They're just never going to be convinced of it. And if they can't get it in the first 5 minutes, don't waste 50 talking to them. That's something they're going to have to come to on their own. So go where you are celebrated, not where you are tolerated. I'm a big believer in that. Big believer in that. We'd love to have you. So I also had mentioned last night on Twitch something that I'm seeing coming. And I don't think a lot of people are aware of it. I'm sure a lot of my audience is aware of all of the people that have been picked up in connection with what happened at the Capitol. They're going to give them a pass. I'm sure a lot of people are like, wait, what do you mean? They're going to put them in jail. No, they're going to give them a pass. They're going to give them an option. They're going to cut a plea deal with them. You see, they don't want a bunch of what they call acolytes clogging up the prison. They want Donald Trump. So they're going to talk to these people and they're going to say, you know what? If you choose to testify or you make a statement that President Trump directed you to, or you were influenced by Mr. Trump, we will give you a sweetheart deal. Because they're already talking about it up in New York. They're already talking about this up in New York. Bringing him up on federal charges. In fact, he had people that, advisors around him, that counseled him not to pardon himself, because to pardon yourself, you have to admit to a specific crime. You can't just issue yourself a general pardon for any criminal act that you might be charged with. So by pointing to one, you could implicate yourself in other things that you didn't pardon yourself for. So it looks like here on the right, the security presence has been stepped up. That's another thing about Florida too. You kind of have to get used to. We have a law and order society down here. In the civilized areas, there are areas that are a little less so, but a lot of police presence. It is incredibly rare, no matter how short of a trip you take, whether it's 10 minutes to the grocery store, that you will not see multiple peace officers, whether they're public service assistants or whether they're actual Florida officers. They're everywhere. So we do believe in the law and order society in Florida. So anyway, I say all that because it looks like they've got the road cleared now. They've backed everybody off of the easement, and it's going to be probably not very long before we see the president go by. I'm not sure once he arrives at Mar-a-Lago if he's going to be making any kind of a statement or not. If they do cut away from the coverage there, I'm not sure that I'm going to live stream the inauguration. It's just nauseating, to be very honest. So it's because it's every 4 years, every 8 years, we have something like this go on. And people give it too much weight. They do. They give it way too much weight. Because as we can see, I mean, for a lot of people that voted for President Trump, they think things changed for 4 years. Well, clearly he lost the election, so they didn't so much in many other ways at the national level. Now, that's why you've got to really be focused in your own neighborhoods, in your own areas, in your own counties, in your own parishes, because that's where real change is going to start. This is one question no one in the media has ever answered about the election. No one has ever answered, how did Biden lose Florida? Florida is the bellwether. Do you know how rare that is for a president to be installed and have that many votes and be beaten so badly in Florida? We're virtually the bellwether. I went to bed that night after I saw the results in Florida. I'm like, well, Trump's got 4 more years. Okay, looks like they've got security vehicles now setting things out, so we may go full screen, because it looks like over on the left, all of the major dignitaries, looks like Mike is there being the good soldier. I think he's gotten a horrible shake, I'll be honest with you. Incredibly unfair position that he was put in. There was really no right answer for him. There was nothing he could have done. I know a lot of people thought he could do things, but he would have put himself out in liability. And you just can't ask a man to do that. You just can't ask him to do what they were asking him to do. So that's just my personal opinion about Mike. He was a pretty decent governor. I believe he was governor of Indiana for some time. So I'm not sure if he will be someone that's high in consideration in 4 years. You know who you might see? And this is something I think a lot of people would be just absolutely floored to hear. But truly, you might see Mitt Romney again from the establishment R to be their sacrificial lamb to lose to Biden in 4 years. Truly, you might see him be put up again as a candidate in 4 years. I know that sounds absolutely crazy. I know that sounds absolutely insane. Okay, it looks like here comes the president. So let's stick with things that are important. There's the security van. Palm Beach Sheriff. I don't think I've ever had I've ever had 1,000 people watching in a live stream before. So we're about 942. It looks like it's showing me a little notification that somebody sent me $5. Thank you. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. It wasn't necessary, but thank you. These people have duct tape over pens. That's kind of funny on their signs. Everyone is entitled to their opinion, I guess. You got to kind of wonder, though, if you go back to 15 and 16, who could have been a better vice president? I mean, one of his kids? Trump, I mean, Donald Ivanka, Donald Jr. Because now everybody was all excited for Cruz because Cruz stood up and challenged the Electoral College, and all of a sudden he's a good guy. But you got to remember, 4 years ago, Trump hated Cruz. Remember Lion Ted? Remember Little Marco, Low Energy Jeb, Ugly Carly? Now it's Sleepy Joe. Everybody has to have some type of a pejorative, a name calling thing. I really hope we can get away with that. Get away from that. Pardon me. Away from that. So it looks like the route's been secured. Not really sure what's going on here, why they would still be that might have just been an advanced team. Because I see more lights coming. And nobody seems to have moved. So it's interesting to see, though, especially in Palm Beach County, because that part of Florida historically is a very blue area. I haven't seen any evidence, and they've been walking back and forth for quite some time, um, of any evidence of counter protesters or any evidence of any troublemakers or anything like that. And this is a blue area. I think this is the idea that I was trying to talk about earlier, that now that Biden is going to be inaugurated, they're going home. They're no longer going to be engaged. They're no longer caring, especially the young kids, about politics. For them, it was just something to distract them. They don't actually care about the reality of civics. They hate it. And that's a weakness. This voting every 4 years stuff. Voting for one guy, hoping one guy is going to change things stuff. So it shouldn't be too long now. Let's see. So if he did actually land at 11, it's 11:12 Eastern time at the moment. Usually about 15, 20 minutes tops. And I'm sure as events warrant, they will maintain the camera coverage. This is Right Side. What we're watching is Right Side Broadcasting Network. Got turned on to them by a Twitch channel that I host. On Twitch, when you're not streaming yourself, you can host other channels. And one of those that I host is Brant for Liberty. And he does a really great job of putting a whole bunch of screens up and covering a lot of different things. So anyway, it looks like we might be seeing the president here. That's Florida State. And there is another group coming. I'm sure all of this is very well coordinated. They've laid this out, who's doing what, when, where. Looks like a box truck of some kind is coming. Another Palm Beach sheriff. It looks like we're getting pretty close to 1,000. Oh, that's a SWAT truck. More security. Probably one of the few states in the union. Florida would be one, perhaps Virginia, Texas, that could give DC a run for its money in security preparations and protocols. As we have so many ports, so many military facilities all over. Some people think it's a sign of, a heavy-handed government or a Roman government. Um, law and order doesn't happen by itself. It doesn't happen by itself. It doesn't just occur. People have to have a good, healthy respect for the authorities. And you have to have good, decent people in those positions too. And I believe Florida does a very, very good job of that. Keeping the right kind of people in those positions. You didn't see um, this past summer all of the problems that you saw in other places in the country. And you'd have thought for sure, at least with our population, that there would have been some evidence of that. But that was all kept to a low roar. There were some protests, but they were largely peaceful. Actual peaceful protests under the guise of BLM, as much as that could be expected. But it's just not something that's tolerated here, and it makes life very safe. I've left my doors open at night for I forget how many nights in a row. And you don't have to sleep with your doors locked in most places, most civilized places. I wouldn't recommend it in Jacksonville. Wouldn't recommend it in parts of Gainesville and Miami Beach. But in the vast majority of suburban Florida, you can. I've gone to the grocery store and forgot to put the garage door down. It just is. It happens. Never had a problem. So I'm not sure what the holdup is here, but I'm sure he will be okay. Looks like something just crested the bridge coming over onto the intercoastal. So this might be it. 11-7, yeah, 11-17. This would be just about right on time. Pardon me. Maybe a couple minutes late, but they had mentioned earlier in the coverage that he stopped and spoke for a little bit. That wasn't planned, so that might be part of the delay. Everything else being so choreographed. So yeah, this has to be it. This is a much larger contingent. And I'm sure they have to be careful with that camera too. You can see there's another one up here. That might be, yeah, that's a camera. Yeah, much more slow moving. Looks like he's stopping to acknowledge the crowds, waving. Returning home to Florida. But once all this dies down, guys, once all this dies down, by midsummer, late spring, the show in DC is going to be something like a circus. It truly is. Because they're so screwed up right now. They don't have a direction. You can't lead by consensus. You can't lead by committee, and that's the big weakness of Joe Biden, is that he's been a senator. Excuse me, and a vice president. He didn't have any leadership role as vice president. So he's got all of this consortium of group of people around him with all of these different wants and needs and desires, and all pulling in all sorts of different directions. It's just not going to work. It's just not going to work. And he's not a strong leader. The fact that he's not is kind of ironically what the reason he won, because people could just imprint upon him anything they wanted to believe about him. BLM thought he was one thing, and the Yang gang thought he was another. The establishment thought he was a third thing. and they're all going to have their demands. They are all going to have their, oh, and let's not forget Me Too, the Me Too movement. They're going to want demands. They're going to want things from him. And he's just not going to be able to please them all. All right, so here are the guys in the Harleys. Nice slow crawl. Those are some nice bikes. Those are some awesome bikes. Yep, this is the entourage. Still technically, apparently, President of the United States. I think inauguration was set for noon Eastern time. We're still 40 minutes away from there, so this is the arrival of the current President of the United States, President Trump, 11:20 Eastern time. Just saying that for YouTube's benefit there. That technically right now at 11:20 Eastern time on January 20th, Donald Trump is President of the United States, arriving in Florida to a great deal of fanfare. And it's really interesting because so many of his staff and so many people, Kayleigh McEnany, all of his kids, they've all come. They've all come here. I mean, I have nothing against Texas. You know, Texas is a great place, but it seems like it just seems like to me the new home and the new headquarters of this movement, excuse me, is going to be right here in the state of Florida. And there he is. There's the President of the United States passing by, flanked by Suburbans. Got the high top, looks like the communications vehicle, and a giant fleet behind him of security. All sorts of support staff. And his entire entourage. So at least for 38 minutes more, Donald Trump will be President of the United States. I'm sure that's full of all sorts of secure equipment. A couple more vans. And it's really not all that hard to secure an island, which really all an intercoastal is just a very long, skinny island. I'm sure a lot of you are aware of that. It's you know, you have the river, you know, what they call the Mar-a-Lago, literally means sea to the lake, so to speak, and they have a Lake Worth. Part of the intercoastal is referred to as Lake Worth, and so it looks like they're getting ready to cut away from coverage here. So anyway, I just wanted to cover that. And like I said, I don't think I'm going to be doing anything with the inauguration. I do have a video I'm thinking about putting up later, but I very rarely go live. But you got to figure, you know, inauguration day with two presidents. Well, one president, one very soon to be president-elect in two different locations. Somewhat of a historical event. I think they had referred to 120 years since such a thing had occurred, where on that inauguration day, the president and the president-elect were that far away from each other. So anyway, you know, these two do a really good job. I wish I would have had the foresight to look up what their names were, but Right Side Broadcasting Network and Brant for Liberty on Twitch. Here they're talking about they're actually partnered with the My Pillow guy. Is it Mike Lindell? Mike Lindell, I think is his name. Code RSBN, 66% off. So anyway, I think I have a My Pillow in a closet here somewhere, maybe in the second bedroom, but I will leave it there. So God bless, like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.